welcome to the big story on NDTV Profit. I'm Nupur Talwar Suri. Now, the startling rise of quick commerce has threatened Kirana stores. A new report suggests that nearly 2 lakh of these Kirana stores have been forced to put their shutters down in the face of competition from quick commerce. Today on the big story, we tell you the tale of the humans who are behind these Kirana stores and the challenges that they are facing. We put that face to the disruption in terms of how many of these Kirana store operators are having to shut down their livelihoods. On the big story, we also asked the question as to what is the solution to this problem that is being faced by these Kirana store operators. But to begin with, we look at a detailed report that we have got from the top 3 metros to examine the story so far.
India's traditional Kirana stores that sells groceries, personal care items and other daily essentials have historically thrived through competition, including the emergence of supermarkets and e-commerce giants like Amazon and Flipkart. But not anymore. The rapid rise of quick delivery platforms like Instamart, Blinkit and even Zomato is forcing many local shops to shut shop at a worrying pace. At NDTV Profit, we decided to investigate the challenges these shopkeepers are encountering firsthand. Let's hear what they have to say.
मैम सब ऑनलाइन ने सब ख़त्म कर दिया हमें। मेरी 3 शॉप थी। मैं 92 से नोएडा में हूँ और मैं 32 ईयर से नोएडा में ग्रोसरी शॉप चला रहा हूँ और सेक्टर 50 में ही मेरी 3 शॉप थी और यहाँ शॉप बंद करने का रीज़न ये है कि सब कस्टमर ऑनलाइन चले गए हैं, नीचे कोई उतर के आता नहीं है और 227 फ्लैट की सोसाइटी है और सेक्टर 50 की टॉप सोसाइटीज़ की मागुन मैपल सोसाइटी है नोएडा में और नीचे कस्टमर आता नहीं है, सब ऑनलाइन ऑनलाइन ऑनलाइन।
Bengaluru has a similar tale to tell. The city is the heart of e-commerce giants and almost all of them started their first operations in Bengaluru. Today, the rise of e-commerce and quick commerce has put many mom and pop stores out of business.
When we started the shop only, we had a free deliveries in those days, so that was very good. Now, as you know, the e-commerce has come, they give whatever we quote the price, they give lesser than that. That is not coming into our business only. We could not get that rate, what they are giving. Usually customers go to that rate only. No?
Here in the country's financial capital, we were seeing Kirana stores coexist alongside e-commerce platforms. But increasingly, of late, we are seeing Kirana stores having to shut shop as e-commerce platforms are beginning to offer a wider range of offerings in quicker time, as well as offering great discounts to the consumer.
तो ऑनलाइन अभी चालू हो गया तो कस्टमर को घर घर में अपना माल पहुंच मिलता है, सब मिलते हैं, तो वो दुकान में आना कम हो गया। वो हिसाब से आदमी का खर्चा, दुकान का खर्चा, लाइट बिल, पानी बिल सब महंगा हो गया। 1972 में हम दुकान लिया तो 18,000 में लिया। वो 18,000 का कीमत के बाद में 82 में 1 लाख का 1.5 लाख का दुकान हो गया। अभी 1.5 लाख दुकान से अभी समझो करोड़ों में दुकान चले गए।
These stories are just a few. The first ever comprehensive analysis of the impact of quick commerce players on India's 1.3 crore Kirana stores made a startling revelation. The double blow of quick commerce and an economic slowdown has led to at least 2 lakh retailers across the country shutting shop. Metros, which are home to 1.7 million Kirana stores with an average monthly sale of 5.5 lakh rupees, account for 45% of these closures. Tier 1 and lower tier cities are not far behind. There have been 30% and 25% closures of Kirana stores here. On the other hand, sales through quick commerce has only been growing.
As the fight for survival continues, the pressing question remains: how can traditional retail adapt and what can be done to protect these local businesses? With camera person Surat Singh, this is Seisha Sen from Delhi for NDTV Profit.
Well, so that brings us to the 3 big questions we are asking this evening. How can we protect the livelihood of small businesses? That's the first question. Question number 2, how should Kirana stores evolve to stay relevant? And question number 3, should predatory pricing used by quick commerce be reviewed? And to answer these questions, we are now joined by Mr. Dhairashil Patil. He's the National President of the AICPDF. We are also joined by Mr. Sameer Gandotra, the founder and CEO of Friendly, and Anand Ramanathan, the partner and leader of consumer products and retail at Deloitte South Asia. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much for taking out the time to be with us. Mr. Patil, to you first. Now, there is a recent report that has come out, and we are using that report that seems to suggest that nearly 2 lakh Kirana stores have been forced to shut shop. And what you seem to suggest is that it is because of quick commerce, the rise of quick commerce, that these Kirana stores are being forced to down their shutters. Tell us a bit more.
Thank you, Nupur. Thank you for having me here. See, because you have to look into this Kirana stores not just as a store. They are the lifeline of the families across the nation. Kirana stores have built trust, catered to local needs, extended credit during tough times, and forced community loyal customers. But today, the expansion of quick commerce platform is challenging in the model. So yes, there are a lot of issues, and as we have rightly said, there are almost 2 lakh stores which have shut down their shops in this year, and many more are to come.
Mr. Patil, you want the government to intervene into this. What is the sort of intervention that you are looking at?
See, the intervention we are looking at is a level playing field, a policy which can govern all the big commerce and e-commerce and quick commerce companies which are used and habitual to do predatory pricing. For them, the business has become just discount. See, the Kirana stores or general stores is not just a replenishment of stocks to the household. It also carries a lot of emotions. So the era of AI and ML with the algorithms will not have the emotional touch what the Kirana stores is having right now. It might be convenient or convenience, but eventually the things which are going for a monopolistic economy will surely land the customer into trouble at the end.
Right. Let's also bring in Mr. Anand Ramanathan into this. Anand, as someone who tracks this sector quite closely, do you agree with the assessment that it is actually quick commerce that is killing the Kirana store? Because when you talk to these big quick commerce players, they seem to suggest that they're not the ones who are eating into this pie. It's actually the pie of e-commerce that they're eating into. But numbers that we have been getting off late do seem to suggest otherwise. What's your assessment of what's happening?
Sure, Nupur. So I think quick commerce does have a small role to play when it comes to metros. But beyond the metros, when you look at just urban demand, it's e-commerce and modern trade, which typically is growing at a much faster rate. And therefore, you will see Kiranas being affected by the wider chain store and e-commerce growth. But beyond that, I also think that Kirana stores provide credit. And that's something which others will find very difficult to replicate. And hence, there are still about 110 middle-income households which India will have by about 2030. Hence, Kiranas will continue to be relevant. In fact, our own report suggests that Kiranas will still be about 2/3 of the market even as late as 2030.
Essentially, you see this as a cycle where we are seeing a bit of a dip right now, but you think that they will still stay relevant? Is that what you are suggesting?
Yes, that's right. If you see FMCG, the last 3 quarters, volume growth has come back. And this is largely on the back of rural and middle income growth, household growth, right? And hence, as some of these segments pick up growth, you will see that the Kiranas will increase their relevance and they'll continue to be relevant even for the next 5 years.
And what is your assessment of what can they do to stay relevant? Because as businesses change and demographies change, every business has to adapt a little bit. So what is it that they can do?
So there are 2 things. One is, of course, what we mentioned on credit. The second is to look at carrying unbranded products. See, it becomes very easy to buy branded products online because you know what you're getting, right? And therefore, if it's available at a lower cost, you would buy it. But unbranded products are a lot more difficult, right? Fruits, vegetables, these are areas where you might still want to pick and choose. Hence, and also fresh categories bring in the customer footfalls, right? Traditionally in retail, customers visit the retail store more often when they have to buy things like spinach and coriander and other fresh products, right? So I think one of the keys is to have a wider assortment of unbranded products which consumers need.
All right, Samir, thanks for waiting patiently. Now, Samir, there is obviously a lot that can be done to help these Kirana stores. Perhaps, you know, they will also have to evolve. They will also have to adapt to changing needs of the customers. What's your sense on that?
Well, thank you, Nupur, for having me on the show. I think, you know, there is a lot that can be done to assist the Kiranas. And I think to take a step back, I think we need to first understand that the Kirana is a word that is used for, let's say, 12 million grocery retailers. Now, within them, there are several types. You know, I think the way that we like to dissect it is in terms of category A and B stores. These are stores that allow a consumer to come into their premise. And believe it or not, only 5% of grocery stores are non-barrier entry. So they allow a consumer to walk in. The rest of the stores there's a barrier between the consumer and the storekeeper. Now that doesn't make for good retail. So I think one of the things that we'll have to realize is that as retail or as grocery retail modernizes, a better experience is what the consumer is always looking for. In some cases, players in the quick space have focused on convenience. There are large retailers or organized retail such as DMart, Reliance, etc., and Osia, for example, that have focused on value. And 70 to 75% of India's consumers still are the value consumer and not the convenience customer. A Kirana offers both. And I think that relationship is important, but how many of them are leveraging that relationship? How many of them have a relationship with their consumers? Are they just there to actually just provide a product across the counter, or are they engaging with their customers? We see e-commerce has been very successful because they engage with the customers. They have offers and deals, and these can be offered by people. And there are plenty of people who have not moved from their local store because they have a relationship, and where that relationship is strong, you know, that is where the Kirana has a hold on his consumers. Digitizing has not really worked because there are too many products, and most of the Kiranas don't, or these grocery stores don't manage inventory on the digital system. They use their point of sale software more as a billing software. If they have to really up the game on digital selling, then they'll have to maintain inventory. I think education, there have been institutions like, you know, Train, which have come in and have educated some of these shopkeepers on how to maintain relationships, understand better pricing, offer the same kind of discounts that the larger retailers have had to their consumers. So I think there's a lot to be done for these smaller retailers. And they'll have to up their game to be able to sort of match up to the modern trade, whether that's large format or quick commerce or e-commerce.
All right. Mr. Patil, coming back to you, you were mentioning the fact that there is predatory pricing at play, and that is something that Kirana stores and, you know, other small retail stores are not able to battle, and you want, you know, some sort of an intervention over there. So tell us a bit more about what you have in mind in terms of the kind of intervention.
Absolutely, Nupur. Predatory pricing should be reviewed, as it distorts fair competition and threatens small businesses. Quick commerce, and as Ajay rightly said, the entire modern trade platform often sells product significantly discounting, drawing customer away from the Kirana shops, which operates tighter margins. The Kirana shops have very tight margins. Reviewing and regulating such pricing practices is essential to be maintained. level playing field. We need rules that ensure fair pricing, so Kirana can compete on service, on convenience, without forcing out the unsustainable discount. Ultimately, this approach protects consumers' choice and prevents market monopolization in the long run. See, as far as the deliveries are concerned, right now, about 10% of the Kirana stores of the total universe are already delivering goods to the consumer. And if you calculate that, it is at least 10x of whatever this all modern trade or quick commerce is doing together right now. So we are not afraid of any competition per se, but we want a regulatory body which will look into this flaunting of laws because of heavy and deep pockets.
So what you're saying is that there are unfair practices at play, and those are the ones that you want reviewed. But do you also agree with the argument that Kirana stores also perhaps need to up their game, because, you know, they offer what perhaps a lot of these quick commerce places don't. That is, that if I know my Kirana store, at least in Mumbai, I know the guy who's sitting there, and if I have a problem with the product, I can always send it back. But whereas, you know, in all these quick commerce sites, I have a face. I don't really have a face. I don't have that connect. And when I go in and file a complaint, it may or may not be addressed. So do you think that there are certain things that Kirana stores actually have that work in their favor, but they're not able to leverage that?
Nupur, I will just give you a small example. Right now, we are into mid of Diwalis, okay? And all this so-called modern trades. A simple example of a sweet packet, which has an MRP of 270 rupees, is right now being sold at about 154 rupees, when the landing cost of the Kirana store is 222 rupees. So now how do you expect that the Kirana store would compete with this all modern trade with such huge discounts at this time? Right now, the walk-in at Kirana stores has gone down by 50%. There are people in Kirana stores sitting just idle and waiting for the consumer, where the entire rush is either on the modern trade platform or on the quick commerce platform or on the e-commerce platform. So, and unfortunately, the companies are also supporting this, because unless and until companies are pushing down discounts to these people, the companies cannot, or the modern trade cannot go such down. So 40%, 80% amount of discount, and how can the Kirana stores compete with such kind of low investment with a lot of issues coming across this?
Well, that's a fair point. Anand, obviously, there seems to be a shift in consumer choices also to quick commerce. And as Mr. Patil was pointing out, predatory pricing is something that is making it extremely difficult for these Kirana stores, or not even Kirana stores. You can even look at other kinds of stores in your neighborhood for them to compete with these quick commerce companies. So do you think that perhaps it may be time for a bit of intervention, at least, because we've seen the government also speak about predatory pricing. We've seen the government, Piyush Goyal has spoken about it a number of times. We've also seen the finance minister get weighed into this debate. What are your thoughts?
So I think quick commerce has an advantage of differential pricing, right? So because they have a good understanding of the catchment, you can have different prices in different catchments depending on the propensity to pay. So that is an inherent part of their model. But beyond that, when it comes to Kiranas, I think Kiranas have a big advantage. I mean, no AI can match the kind of customer knowledge that an individual would have, right? And therefore, given that you know the consumer so well, can you utilize that to carry the right assortment? See, even today, if you look at it, in most categories, quick commerce cannot carry the entire range, right? Just given the space constraints in the dark stores, the kind of assortment depth that is possible in a quick commerce is going to be far less compared to what a Kirana can still stock, because they know their consumers well, right? And therefore, I think that's the advantage they need to play on. And knowing who your consumer is, please stock the products that they would need, and then charge the premium basis the relationship and the convenience that you offer, right? So that should broadly be one of the models that the Kiranas can adopt to compete with quick commerce.
All right. Samir, coming to you next. Samir, the report that we are bringing to our viewers today largely focuses only on Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities. But what about Tier 3 cities and beyond? That is going to be a lot of disruption, and it is waiting to happen. There are certain reports that seem to suggest that it could, happen as soon as 2025, and going forward, it's going to be a bigger challenge for rural areas also. So how do you see that? And your thoughts also on predatory pricing, because that seems to be, brought up as one of the reasons why your local stores are unable to compete with quick commerce.
Yeah. So Nupur, we operate small format grocery stores in the smaller towns of currently in Gujarat. And in that nature, we compete with, we're organized retail competing with, let's say, individual owned retail stores. We offer a much better experience to consumers in that town because it's the first time they get to walk inside a store. We also assist micro Kiranas, and by that I mean the Kiranas that do less than 2 lakhs and in the rural catchments, by being a back-end supplier and a supplier of everything that they can't carry. So on one hand, we do compete with, let's say, individual stores, and on the other, we do support micro Kiranas. When it comes to the landscape on how these consumers are looking at convenience and whether they need a delivery in 10 minutes, our thesis is that in these smaller towns, going to the Kirana store is not a chore, it's more like an outing. And these people and the consumers there like to go and they want a better retail experience. Again, they are very, very time rich. Convenience does not have as much of a meaning to them as much as, let's say, it does to, double income families where both husband and wife are working and they don't have the time to go to a grocery store, and therefore quick commerce works for them. So I think it will take some time before, the benefits of quick commerce come. I think another thing that we need to understand is that a large section of what is consumed is in small quantities in these towns. 90% of snack food is under 10 rupees and lower. 85% of soft drinks and ice creams are 20 rupees and lower. If the order values of products goes under 300 rupees, even on quick commerce, it starts breaking in terms of the unit economics. And these are the price points at which, the tier 3 cities, tier 4, 5 towns are consuming. So we don't see it as being a challenge at the moment and not in the foreseeable future. The second part of your question was predatory pricing. I think the government, from its standpoint in India, is extremely protective of consumers. And we are one of the very few countries in the world that has an MRP. We also have a very strong public distribution system when it comes to essentials and staples, and including things like kerosene, which I remember from my childhood. These are when it comes to quick commerce and its predatory pricing. I think some of it is not predatory, but is loss leaders. For years during the phase when onions are highly priced, the modern retailers used to offer onions at 1 rupees, but that was only to attract consumers to come to their stores. I believe that for the FMCG companies, there will be a differential in pricing, the way that they approach the large retailers, where they get display, where the incomes come in terms of the visibility that these stores are able to afford, as opposed to what the smaller stores are able to do. So again, I think it comes to whether these stores all aggregate, and that's the model that we are trying to deliver, which is a franchisee model by aggregating a lot of these stores in smaller towns. That way, we are able to provide them the modern store prices, and standalone modern trade, which is now up to anywhere between 5,000 to 10,000 of these stores across India, are also able to afford some of that pricing that was mentioned in terms of having that better pricing. So predatory pricing will be very difficult. I don't really think it's predatory, but I think it's also a lot of customer acquisition and loss leaders, and they've always been there in the grocery game.
All right, Mr. Patil, any final thoughts before we wind up the show? Obviously, there is a lot perhaps that some Kirana stores can do to become more attractive. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Nupur, I would like to take an advantage of this platform itself right now to request to our esteemed Prime Minister to reevaluate the foreign direct investment policy, ensure fair competition, ensure ethical labor practices, and setting up a ground for discount strategies can be pointed out. That can be a start. And let us recognize the Kirana store model has been time tested and form an integral part of our socio-economic fabric. Quick commerce or modern trade can be have a place in their country, in our country, but not at the cost of the traditional retail. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Patil, Sameer, as well as Anand, all three of you, thank you very much this evening for taking out the time on Dhanteras as it is to share your thoughts on this.
Yeah. Thank you. Happy Dhanteras.
Yeah. Well, with that, it is a wrap on the big story this evening. We'd like to wish our viewers a very happy Dhanteras and thank you for watching.